Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. We're ready to start today's meeting. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. De La Vega. Ms. Garcia Robes.
Present.
Ms. Perez. Mr. Rodriguez is absent. Mr. Tunidor.
Present.
Mr. Zogby.
Present.
Mr. Junco.
Present.
Madam President, you have enough members to conduct business.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on to the invocation, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be by Councilmember De La Vega.
Lord, we thank you for your continuous blessings and pray that you continue to guide us and benefit of our city. Amen.
Meeting guidelines.
All lobbyists must register with the city clerk. As a courtesy to others, please refrain from using cellular telephones or other similar electronic devices in the council chamber. A maximum of 3 speakers in favor and 3 speakers in opposition will be allowed to address the council on any one item. Each speaker's comments will be limited to 3 minutes. No signs or placards in support of or in opposition to an item or speaker shall be permitted within the council chamber. Any person, whether participating via the web platform, telephonic conferencing, or physical presence at City Hall, interested in making comments or posing questions on matters of public concern or on any item on the agenda may do so during the meeting. Members of the public may address the city council on any item pertaining to city business during the comments and questions portion of the meeting. A member of the public is limited to 1 appearance before the city council, and the speaker's comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Individuals should be respectful of the elected officials and staff that are on the dais and make every effort to speak with a moderate tone using appropriate language and avoiding personal attacks. Members of the public in the audience shall refrain from shouting or making remarks from their seats to the mayor, council members, or staff sitting on the dais. The public can view public meetings on the city's YouTube page.
Thank you. Moving on to comments and questions. Do we have any registered?
Registered speaker Barbara Canales.
Press a little bit, yeah.
Barbara Canales, my address is 1681 West 68th Street, Hialeah, Florida, 33014. On behalf of the citizens of Hialeah, while I was collecting my neighbors' signatures for no parallel parking, some of them warned me to be careful. Yes, I have been threatened. And 2 weeks ago, my car was vandalized. Why? Well, sadly, I have to fight for 2 types of cancers. The cause, Mr. Bobo administration. Now, these 2 cancers have spread nonstop. Pictures number 1, 2, and 3. Number 1, above the law with privilege. It shows you a dumpster truck. Why? The trees were hacking the trees, make that perfect. Number 2, there's the grass has deteriorated sharply, commercial trucks, cars. Where is the poor dog? On the street. The dog is on the street instead of the Hialeah swell. Really. Picture number 3, the same, hacking trees for perfect parkings for all the vehicles, except to keep the flora and fauna that we had. Please, So, Mayor Bobo, Chief of Police, Mr. Fuentes, please stop spreading the cancer. Cancer number one. We really appreciate for being the platform for destroying our treasure, flora and fauna in Hialeah as well. Remember Hialeah? It stands for pretty prairie. Cancer number two. My block had changed from family friendly to 40 to 50 men friendly. And surprisingly, none of their cars are vandalized. Things that make you go, Pictures number four. Luckily, I had only one huge car parked across the street of my house, therefore only one man walking around instead of two plus. Picture number 5, 6, we call them the Five Amigos. Dangerously parked right next to the corner of Northwest 122nd Street, where accidents happen frequently. One of them was, I believe, was during January. And then picture number 7, if you could look at how ugly that block looks with parallel parking. If that looks good to you, Houston, we got a problem. Now, please stop trashing our treasure and stop 40 to 50 men walking around right across the street of our homes. Just stop. We could do better. Thank you. Look at the last picture. That's a residential area. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
There's no one else registered.
Okay, moving on to presentations.
Presentation by Yesenia Gruich, occupational license official.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Yesenia Gruich, business tax official for the city of Hialeah. I was presenting a quick overview of some of the questions on a previous meeting. Just share my screen. Can you guys see that? Hello?
Yes, we see it.
Okay. So the first, I'm doing a business overview. There was a couple questions that were asked, and this is what the city currently looks at with all the BTRs on the map, which are the blue dots. This question arose due to this presentation that our zoning director presented for the MBD area. And some questions arose, so I wanted to make sure we were able to answer them. This basic overview is not every single license we have issued in the city, but it is compared from 24 to 25. The reason I did both years is because we're currently in renewal timeframe. We've collected about 75% of our renewals, so I wanted to make sure I was based on the numbers of both years that we could have to compare. We have manufacturing at 7%, wholesale at 7%. I'm sorry, manufacturing at 6% so far this year. 7% wholesale, warehouse and storage is 6%. Our solid waste is 0.07%. Our services, which is our biggest type of service, biggest type of license we issue, is at 60%, and our retail in the city is at 21%. These are the totals on top of this year's BTRs that have been issued. So we have 9,996 so far. Based on last year, which we issued 11,824 BTRs. I wanted to discuss a little bit more on services because there was some questions that were asked during that presentation. Services entails food services, banking, cosmetology offices. Oh, sorry, I listed banking twice. Home health care agencies, recreational sport, fitness, healthcare and social assistance, which are basically like medical services, the laundromats, the schools, the multi-service offices, the repair and maintenance, and the travel agencies. I was asked to kind of put in perspective on a map what medical look like. We have currently 11.39% in the city. If you look at the blue dots, it kind of gives a little bit of an overview of how it's spread out in the city. And they also asked about travel agencies. So obviously travel agency is not as big as our medical field, but it does kind of give an overview of where these travel agencies kind of are in the city. I believe right now we have 87 BTRs issued for travel agencies. A lot of them do encompass like I know the question was asked, envíos, like packages, import, export, and whatnot. So a lot of these locations do encompass that type of service in the city. I believe that was all the questions that were asked during the last council meeting, but I'm available to answer any other questions you guys may have.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Through the chair,
You're recognized.
just to clarify, BTR, I know what it means, and I'm sure everybody else in the dais knows what it means, but it's a public meeting. A BTR is what again, Ms.
A
Gruish?
business tax receipt, previously called an occupational license.
The old occupational licenses. So
Correct.
thank you for the snapshot of what that looks like in our city. Thank you. That was it. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay, anyone else? Oh, we're good. Thank you, Jasenia.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, moving on to announcements and amendments.
Consent items R and S have been added to today's agenda, and zoning item 16H is postponed until the city council meeting of February 25th, 2025, per the applicant's request.
Okay, board appointments.
Proposed resolution reappointing Maida Gutierrez to the Board of Commissioners of Hialeah Housing Authority of the City of Hialeah, Florida, for a 4-year term commencing on February 15th, 2025, and ending on February 14th, 2029.
Okay,
Do we motion that?
Yes, sir.
yes.
Yes, motion.
Okay, motion by Zogby. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Junco. Please call the roll.
Mr. Junco? Ms. De La Vega?
Yes.
Ms. Garcia Robes?
Yes.
Ms. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Tundidor? Mr. Zogby?
Yes.
Motion carries. The item is approved.
Okay, consent agenda. Anyone want to pull an item?
Motion otherwise. Second.
Motion by Councilmember Zogby, second by Councilmember Tumidor.
Ms. De La Vega?
Yes.
Ms. Garcia Robes?
Yes.
Ms. Perez? Mr. Tundidor?
Yes.
Mr. Zogby?
Yes.
Mr. Junco?
Yes.
Motion carries. The consent agenda has passed.
Okay, moving on to administrative items. Item A.
Second reading and public hearing of proposed ordinance amending Chapter 98 of the City of Hialeah Code of Ordinances entitled Zoning, Article 6, Supplementary District Regulations, Division 3, Building and Structures, creating a new section 98-1681 to allow mobile food dispensing vehicles, also known as food trucks, to operate in the city, subject to certain operating standards, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for penalties for violation hereof, providing for a severability clause, providing for inclusion in the code, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, this item's on second reading, so it's open for the public. Do we have anyone registered to speak on this item?
No, ma'am.
Okay, pleasure of the board.
Motion. Through the chair, one more.
You're recognized.
If this is going to pass today, possibly on second reading, and I think it's clear what the ordinance says, we're going to start putting rules on the food trucks, but people need to know their first one-stop shopping is at our BTR department. They have to have a license, and that's where they're instructed the requirements. The truck has to be, there are requirements for the vehicle, there are requirements for the drivers, there's requirements for insurance, and then there's zoning requirements, where they can park, what the hours they can park, and things. It's going to change. So people are going to have to comply, and we need that. And I just wanted to ask, what is what's the plan? I know it's effective today, it's second reading. Mayor or city attorney, sir, when is this in effect? Will there be a grace period where people are, do we know, where people are told? Because there's a lot of food trucks out there. So the enforcement may start immediately?
The enforcement will start once the veto period passes. There is no, this is the council and by the city at workshop. So, no, sir, I'm not aware of any other abatement or
Yeah,
deferred
that's
period. You know, so it would,
I just wanted to know the answer because we're going to get asked that question. And we just need to let them know, look, these are the rules. But like I said, the one-stop shopping is with the young lady who just spoke before, BTR 305-883-5890. Everybody has to call there and find out what then they'll be given a set of instructions on the first floor here of this building of what they need to do. So, okay, that needs to happen immediately. Thank you.
Okay, so we have by Councilmember Tumidor.
Second.
Ms. Garcia Robes? Ms. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Tumidor? Mr. Zogby?
Yes.
Mr. Junco?
yes,
Ms. De La Vega?
Yes.
Motion carries. The item is approved.
There it goes. Okay, item B.
Second reading and public hearing of proposed ordinance approving the closure and vacation of the public alley and the release and abandonment of the easement reservation traversing land running on the east side of the city of Hialeah from East 27th Street and East 28th Street to East 9th Avenue and East 10th Avenue, Hialeah, Florida, as depicted and legally described in Exhibit A, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing penalties for violations hereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date.
Okay. This item. Can you hear me? Is that it's working? Okay. This item is also on second reading. It's open for the public. Do we have anyone?
Motion notwithstanding.
Motion by Councilmember Zogby. Do we want a second?
second,
Second by whom?
Ms. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Tumidor?
yes,
Mr. Zogby?
Yes.
Mr. Junco?
yes,
Ms. De La Vega?
Yes.
Ms. Garcia Robes?
Yes.
Motion carries. The item is approved. First reading of proposed ordinance providing for a primary election to be held on Tuesday, November 4th, 2025, and a general election to be held on Tuesday, December 9th, 2025, providing for the Miami-Dade County Elections Department to conduct these elections and other matters relating thereto, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing penalties for violation hereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date.
And motion.
second,
Mr. Tumidor?
Yes.
Mr. Zogby?
Yes.
Mr. Junco?
yes,
Ms. De La Vega?
Yes.
Ms. Garcia Robes?
Yes.
Ms. Perez?
Yes.
Motion carries. The item is approved. Second reading and public hearing is scheduled for February 25th, 2025. First reading of proposed ordinance setting the election date for the general election for the year 2025 for the date of Tuesday, December 9th, 2025, for the office of mayor, for the offices of the city council whose terms have expired pursuant to municipal powers vested by state law according to Florida statute sections 166.021 subsection 4 and 100.3605 subsection 2 in order to conduct elections on the same date as other municipalities, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing penalties for violation hereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date.
Motion.
Second.
second,
De La Vega. Mr. Tumidor?
Yes.
Mr. Zogby?
Yes.
Mr. Junco?
yes,
Ms. De La Vega?
Yes.
Ms. Garcia Robes?
Yes.
Ms. Perez?
Yes.
Motion carries. The item is approved. Second reading and public hearing is scheduled for February 25th, 2025. First reading of proposed ordinance providing for a special primary election to be held in the city of Hialeah on Tuesday, November 4th, 2025, the same date as the primary election for the city of Hialeah, to fill a vacancy for city council member Group Seat 4 in accordance with the city charter, section 2.02, subsection C2, providing for a special general election, runoff election to be held on Tuesday, December 9th, 2025, if necessary, providing for the Miami-Dade County Elections Department to conduct these elections and other matters relating thereto, and providing for early voting times and dates for the City of Hialeah special primary election should a special general election be held, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date.
Pleasure of the board.
Through the chair, it is indeed a 1 week, primary, early voting, right?
So, sir, on item F, the proposed ordinance is for 1 week of early voting for the primary and 3 days for the runoff election.
Yeah, motion. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Second.
Motion by Zogby and second by
Mr. Zogby,
Yes.
Mr. Junco,
Yes.
Ms. De La Vega,
yes.
Ms. Garcia Robes,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Tonidor.
Yes.
Motion carries. The item is approved. Second reading and public hearing is scheduled for February 25th, 2025. First reading of proposed ordinance providing for the early voting time and location as allowed by state law, specifically sections 101.657, subsections 1A through 1E, Florida statutes, designating JFK Library as an early voting site for the November 4th, 2025 City of Hialeah primary election and special primary election to begin on Monday, October 27th, 2025, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., on Tuesday, October 28th, 2025, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., on Wednesday, October 29th, 2025, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., on Thursday, October 30th, 2025, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Friday, October 31st, 2025, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., on Saturday, November 1st, 2025, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and on Sunday, November 2nd, 2025, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and providing for early voting at JFK Library for the general election and special general election if necessary, and in particular on Friday, December 5th, 2025, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., on Saturday, December 6th, 2025, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and on Sunday, December 7th, 2025, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing penalties for violation hereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date.
It is also.
Through the chair. Madam Clerk, could you reread the item? Never mind. That's a motion. Martha.
Who was the second?
Second.
Oh.
Thank you.
Mr. Junco,
Yes.
Ms. De La Vega,
Yes.
Ms. Garcia Robes, Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Tonidor,
Yes.
Mr. Zogby.
Yes.
Motion carries. The item is approved. Second reading and public hearing is scheduled for February 25th, 2025. First reading of proposed ordinance amending Chapter 2 entitled Administration, Article 2, Departments, Offices, and Divisions, Division 9, Grants and Human Services of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Hialeah, specifically by renaming Grants and Human Services to Housing and Community Services, providing for a severability clause, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date.
Motion.
Second.
Ms. De La Vega, Ms. Garcia Robes,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Tonidor,
Yes.
Mr. Zogby,
Yes.
Mr. Junco.
Yes.
Motion carries. The item is approved. Second reading and public hearing is scheduled for February 25th, 2025. First reading of proposed ordinance amending in part Chapter 70 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Hialeah entitled Retirement and Pensions, and in particular amending Article 7 entitled Elected Officials to include Section 70-535 to be entitled Deferred Compensation Plan Established, Purpose, Name, Effective Date, Section 70-536 to be entitled Contributions to Deferred Compensation Plan, and Section 70-537 to be entitled Vesting and Deferred Compensation Plan, approving a deferred compensation plan for elected officials, designating an appropriate official of the city to approve and administer the deferred compensation plan, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for inclusion in code, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date.
Motion. Second.
Ms. Garcia Robles?
Yes.
Ms. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Tonidor?
Yes.
Mr. Zogby?
Yes.
Mr. Junco?
Yes.
Ms. De La Vega?
Yes.
Motion carries. The item is approved. Second reading and public hearing is scheduled for February 25th, 2025. First reading of proposed ordinance amending Chapter 70 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Hialeah entitled Prohibition of Receipt of Retirement Benefits upon Election to City Office or City Employment, to be entitled Granting of Continuing Retirement Benefits upon Election to City Office or City Employment, to include granting retirement benefits to elected officials who held public office or were employed by the City of Hialeah and have since returned to city office or city employment after said separation from the city, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for penalties for violation hereof, providing for inclusion in code, providing for a severability clause, and providing for a retroactive effective date of October 11th, 2021.
Public, pleasure of the board.
Motion.
Motion by Zogby, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Junco.
Ms. Perez?
Yes.
Mr. Tonidor is away. Mr. Zogby?
Yes.
Mr. Junco?
Yes.
Ms. De La Vega?
Yes.
Ms. Garcia Robles?
Yes.
Motion carries. The item is approved. Second reading and public hearing is scheduled for February 25th, 2025.
Through the chair. I just wanted to thank everybody who was involved in the planning and the execution of the Food and Wine Festival this past weekend, because it was absolutely amazing for a city. The ambience was awesome. I think it was one for the books, but I just wanted to publicly recognize everybody who was involved because it was great. So thank you, everyone who was involved.
I agree.
Some of them are here, so
I agree with you.
No, I'm sorry. I just needed to correct the record for administrative items H and I. Second reading will not be held on February 25th, 2025, but instead the first meeting of March, which is March 11th, 2025.
Madam President, I might, just wanted to echo Councilwoman De La Vega's comments. On Saturday, on Saturday, not so much a wine festival or a food festival, but an opportunity really for our community to come together and to be able to celebrate. For all of you that were able to attend, I think this was a great showcase of businesses in our city. A great showcase of residents in our city. So it was really a great effort. But I do want to acknowledge a couple of names. George's ability to put together things on a short notice, it fails to amaze. I mean, he just really, really great as the way he does this. And his hand was woven throughout a lot of what you saw there. Alice's ability to promote and to make sure through her team that this was being communicated in the right way. Also, it can't work unless she does that. Mike from La Bodeguita, his involvement, his support, unselfishly, so that this could come together, I think spoke volumes. And last but not least, Mark at my office, who literally stopped doing what he's doing normally, which is to keep me on time so that he could work with vendors out there and make sure that they were not just participating, but situated in the right place. It all came down together. Thank you to Hialeah Park, Sarmo, 23 for their support, others, FPL, La Bolita, so many folks that came and kind of collaborated. But I don't want to lose sight of the fact that if we just look at it purely, simply, the potential of Hialeah, I said it there that night, that's the potential of Hialeah. And if we could foster that, promote that, encourage that throughout all the celebrations of the 100th year and beyond, we could create the buzz, the feel that I think all of us want to see in our city. There are more events to come. Soon we'll be doing something at Bucky Dent, where we'll do a museum within the park. And I think all of you are going to be very impressed with the work that's been done there. And that's going to happen. Again, this team of folks that keep working together, they're not interested in credit. They just want to get it done. I, as mayor, just try to stay out of the way so I don't mess it up. And they did good. So it really, thank you all for your support on this. This is part of the collaborative effort of the 100th year anniversary committee that green lighted these things and their involvement. Thank you to Councilwoman Monica Perez, her involvement, her support, former Councilwoman Vivian Casals also who helps up, but all the community folks that came together and made this thing happen. It's, again, I just think it's a testament to all of them, their love for the city, the businesses that wanted to do this, and then the community that accepted it. It was, I could not find a critique of the event, to be perfectly honest with you. That's how good of the event it was. And I hope it's just a building block for future events in our city. Okay. So again, thank you all to made it happen. You are all the heroes of this event. Thank you.
So that's it. No one else have new business or unfinished business?
Ma'am, under new business, we have a report of a Scrivener's error. On August 13, 2024, the City Council approved consent item L, passing and adopting resolution number 2024-198, adopting the city's action plan for federal funds for program year 2025. The program year should correctly reflect 2024. The item is being amended to reflect the correct program year. Will all those persons who will be testifying on an item, please stand and raise your right hand?
Las personas que quisieran prestar sus opiniones delante de esta junta, por favor, pónganse de pie y alcen la mano derecha.
Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. If so, say I do.
¿Usted jura o afirma que el testimonio que va a dar será la verdad, toda la verdad y únicamente la verdad y que yo sea su testigo? Por favor, diga que sí si la respuesta es afirmativa.
Let the record reflect that all have responded in the affirmative.
En el archivo público constará que todos han respondido afirmativamente.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Item 15A, I've just been informed that the registered lobbyist is running behind. If we can just move this to when he gets here.
Right.
Okay.
Just defer that, please.
Okay, then there's only one land use,
That's correct.
so then we have to move to zoning
That's
and then
correct.
go back to.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so item A.
Second reading and public hearing of proposed ordinance rezoning property from GU Interim District, Miami-Dade County zoning designation to RH 3M Multiple Family District, granting a variance permit to allow 100% of the units to be developed as RH 3M, where a maximum of 30% of the units may be developed as RH 3M on developments with a total area of 11 to 49 acres and allowing private streets where private streets are not allowed, all in contrast to Hialeah Code of Ordinances, Section 98-1606 sub B and 98-1606 subsection O. property located at folio number 04-2021-001-0480, Hialeah, Zone GU, Interim District, Miami-Dade County zoning designation, and legally described herein, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing penalties for violation hereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date.
Hi. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam President. Hugo Arza, 701 Brickell Avenue. I'm representing the property owners and the contract purchaser, Lennar Homes. I'm joined today by the Lennar Homes Division President, Phil Cerati, as well as Patrick Bayonne and Carmen Orozco of his team, and my colleague, Erica Adams and Alejandro Arias. I did a full presentation at first reading. I'd be happy to run through it again, or whatever the wish of the
I mean,
answer questions.
I
And
know,
obviously reserve any time if there are just any folks who speak to be able to address any questions.
well, I know two of the council members weren't here to see the
Right.
presentation last time. I don't know if they want to see it or if they're okay.
We'll run through it. I mean, if it's their wish.
A zoning.
16A.
16A. I already saw it. I'm okay with this.
You're okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's on second reading. Is there anyone? Discussion? No one's here. So if everyone's okay,
Well, I'll
Mark, are
second.
you
and-
okay?
There's people.
Oh. Okay, you gotta come to the mic.
And yeah, if I could just reserve any time to address any questions. So.
Sure.
Ma'am, for the record, we received 11 email messages from persons in opposition to the approval of this item, all of which are part of the backup to the item.
Hello, Carlos Narvaez, 9796 West 34th Avenue, the Annex. I'm here to representing some of my neighbors. We have a huge concern with the development, especially with the traffic, right? So we only have one way out, one way in, one way out to Annex. Sorry, two, and then through Miami Lakes. Our quality of life is getting bad every single day because of the mobility that we have in the area. We had too much truck traffic, commercial traffic. We don't have a full police station. We don't have a full fire station. And some of the neighbors have reached out to me, and our big concern, so we cannot study the development of the city, right? But the problem is that our quality of life, adding 178 more homes to the area is gonna really put a huge impact in our life. And one of the things that you guys are tasked is to oversee the well-being of all the residents in the area, right? Especially all the taxpayers. And we are not seeing, so we're paying a lot of taxes, and we're not seeing something that is improving our life. And nothing against Lennar or the owner of the property. It's just that the way that the annex is structured right now is adding more homes is not going to help us improve our quality of life. And I keep sounding like a broken record, keep talking about our quality of life, but it's really, really bad in the area. So I urge you guys, if you guys want to approve this community in the area, make sure that the conditions for approval is that our quality of life improves, such as improving the mobility in the area. I know there are some issues with 170th Street, 170th Avenue, and if you guys look into this and make sure that those issues were resolved before any construction, I gotta tell you, the annex will love you forever. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Hugo, so I remember we spoke, or you actually, when you did the presentation, you
Yeah.
spoke about where they would go in by and come out and.
Yeah, so I mean, we have a slide. Mr. Narvaez recognized, he spoke at planning and zoning. He wasn't here at first reading. We sent him a letter. I wasn't able to speak with him after planning and zoning, but thank you for acknowledging. We sent the letter kind of overnight mail to his house if he had wanted to reach out at all over the last 2 or 3 weeks. And thank you for acknowledging that we, made that effort. We have a slide that talks about, I think what Mr. Narvaez is talking about are some of the macro issues in the area that we're familiar with. This is a for sale product, and I think the city's been hoping to get some more of that in the city. There are improvements coming. The truck traffic is going to be deviated over to 107th Avenue. I know the city's been talking to, that is a construction project that the county's undertaking. I know from having worked on a number of the industrial projects in the annex area that those approvals all will require the truck traffic to migrate to 107th once 107th is widened. So I think 97th will see a natural reduction in the truck traffic. Your city will be able to enforce that condition. There are also, of course, the other really big improvement coming to the area is the Turnpike Exchange and entrance on 170th Street. This project will also work with signal timing and some other issues that are more specific to our project to try and mitigate any of those impacts. And so the traffic engineers, we submitted a traffic study. Your city's traffic engineers reviewed that traffic study and have recommended that we do a series of improvements to the traffic signalization. We mentioned at planning and zoning, and I think at first reading, this site is contaminated, as a lot of the sites in Hialeah Heights were at one point. The city will, obviously the owners will have to clean up that property. That will take some time. And why that's important in this case is, the information I got from Lennar when we were, before planning and zoning is that it will take every bit of 9 to 12 months to secure DERM approvals. And then after that, we would start constructing and building. It wouldn't likely have any homes in this location until the second half of next year. And the community won't be fully built out and sold till probably 2 to 3 years after that. So we're looking at a construction timeline of 26 through 28 or 29, which also allows us to continue to work. And what we offered in our letter was that we were happy to meet with the neighbors, have them come to the city, have them go see the county commissioners. We're comfortable in that world, and we understand the neighbors may not be because it's not what they do. Happy to help them get some answers to those questions. On the final point, you all probably know more than we do, but it's my understanding that there is a kind of a small city complex with permanent police and fire stations being proposed for the land that you have in the city. I believe AECOM has already commissioned a study. The city's working towards doing that. And again, given the timeline that we have for development, we would reasonably anticipate that the city will have those in place even before this property moves forward. So, our parcel isn't changing the land use. We're not trying to build more density than we're allowed to. We're trying to provide a for sale product. We will certainly be good neighbors. And so our hope is that, we can get this project approved, move some more of your own residents who maybe are renting and want to buy a place into this community, and work with the neighbors in the city to continue to make sure that whether it's the Turnpike Authority or the county or FDOT are doing what they say they're going to do with respect to the improvements in the area. But, our commitment is that, we'll be there, every step of the way. Lennar has been in your city for many years. I stand before you very often, so I know you guys will know where to find me. So I think that probably both answers your question and gives you a little bit of the overview. So.
Thank you. So anybody have any questions?
Through the chair.
You recognize?
The gentleman who spoke before you in opposition of it was very eloquent, very polite, and very on target. And we all understand what you're saying, and we do. We've been there, but you live it every day. The thing that consoles me about this project is that if we've allowed the development around it, we really can't stand in the way of this remaining lot to be developed. But again, what consoles us, I'm sure I speak for the rest of us, is that it's a few years before, it'll be a few years before you see the residents in and you see that added 170 units worth of traffic. So hopefully, like you mentioned yourself, 170th Street, corridor of 107 will be built out, part of 102 will be built out. So there's always going to be traffic. Everybody wants to move to South Florida, so we're growing. But it shouldn't be that bad of an impact, because I think the road work will catch up before the construction is done and people are ready to move in, at least from what Mr. Ars is telling us. So we're conscious of that, and hopefully we'll have the fire station, the police station, all up and running before that. Okay, we're gonna push that. Thank you, Paul.
Anyone else?
Through the chair.
You're recognized.
So I want to just, I received several, concerns from residents in that area. And I'm just, in reading all of the emails and there's obviously a very, very big concern for traffic,
Sure.
congestion. I think one of the first things when I first came on board was, the annex area, the congestion there. So I do have a little bit of hesitation. I like the project. I do have a little bit of hesitation, just because I do know that we talk about the 170th and 107th, right? But is there anything in concrete that is in the works to be built already and to,
Yeah. We have, well, Deborah, yeah.
is there
I
a
mean, Deb-
timeline? I want to make sure these timelines kind of
Well,
coincide.
that has been in the works for many years.
Right. So-
The city was the one that was proactive to get all the dedications. There was even a lawsuit with a company. All that is done. The county was about to start, and then something happened that their contract expired. So then they had to bid it out again. So it's more like the political part that needs to push for that so we can get it, because we have our hands tied. Even the turnpike, that interchange is almost finished, but they cannot complete it because the county didn't complete 107. So the same way that we have been waiting years and years for 37th Avenue that now is being built, the same thing is happening here. That's why in the past, many times, for example, 97th Avenue was built by the city and then reimbursed by the county, because it takes them a long time to get things done, and I cannot talk for them.
But Deb,
Is-
you said, okay, so what needs political push, like you said?
Political push to the county to start the construction and finish the construction as soon as possible of 107. Because the whole plan of the annexation area is based on the turnpike interchange. 107 is a network of streets that need to work together. If one is not working, then you have the problem that you have now.
Right. And I do know that one of our commissioners recently went out.
Oh,
to-
yeah.
Yep.
And then go ahead, finish your thought.
And,
but I-
and in speaking to him, I know that there's plans, but there's nothing in concrete, right?
So if you're referring to Commissioner Bermudez,
Yes.
Commissioner Bermudez recently, he's the commissioner in that area, brought forth an item so that the contract could be moved forward again. I mean, Deborah's right. The previous contract they had for some sort of technical reason had expired. But I know Commissioner Bermudez and his office had an item recently to direct and request of the administration at the county to go ahead and put that and get that back and moving. So certainly in terms of, I wouldn't call it political pushing, but certainly inquiring of anyone. I mean, I would
Right.
say that Commissioner Bermudez has already done that. And I know you all enjoy a great relationship with your city, with your county commissioners. I think he'd be a natural person, being the commissioner in that district, to get, further updates down the road. But they did move an item recently so that the contract will go back out. So it is moving again. We'd all love for it to be done already, but it is moving again.
I think what is just going through my head, right, especially with all the calls and emails that we got, was just, does it make sense to hold off just a couple weeks to see if we can get everything moving and approved for that before we approve this? I'm not sure if there's any other dialogue.
I mean, I can promise you, Councilwoman De La Vega, I mean, the county commission is unlikely, and the county's unlikely to let a contract out in 2 weeks. If I thought there was a vote, this week or next week,
Okay.
I'd be the first one to tell you, it's so close, let's wait. I mean, it could easily be 30 days or 60 days, and we would be prejudiced by not being able to. Again, I mean, we've got a pretty long Durham process alone that'll take us all of this year to finish. So there will be plenty of time. If I thought something was happening in the next 2 weeks, but there's no item or anything, so really we'd come back in 2 weeks and tell you at best. We had another conversation with Commissioner Bermudez, but there'd be no action taken. There's just nothing on the agendas for that.
And Hugo, I think you met with the residents in that area, or?
So we were here at Planning and Zoning there were 3 or 4 speakers.
Okay.
Mr. Narvaez was one of them. When we finished, they left before we could speak with him. So what we did was we sent him a letter overnight,
Okay,
saying, look, we're sorry. By the time we walked out, you all weren't around. All we had was their address because of course they give their address. And so, we personally sent a letter. Mr. Narvaez acknowledges that he received that letter. In that letter, we put our phone numbers and emails and said, please reach out. Obviously, they're well within their right to just show up today. But, we didn't hear from them over the last, I guess, 3-4 weeks since planning and zoning. And to my knowledge, no one attended at first reading. We were here and there was nobody here.
Anyone else?
Through the chair.
Yeah.
Councilman, were you gonna meet with Commissioner Bermudez?
That was, again, I got several of the emails today. And so my plan was to meet with Commissioner Bermudez to kind of discuss this and see, how we can make it better. I'm not sure if in the plans there is anything that would kind of allow for a better flow of traffic. Somebody mentioned that there's a stop sign there that only goes one way. So it's kind of like I myself feel like I'm not 100%, and I wanted to meet with Commissioner Bermudez as well as some of the residents, like physically go out and.
Do you think you'd be able to meet with him within the next 2 weeks?
Sure, I'm sure I could. But this is on second reading.
Oh, this is our second reading already?
Yep.
Okay, so if you feel comfortable tabling it so you can meet with him and discuss it. I don't mind tabling it until you talk to the commissioner.
Can I say something? They signed a declaration of restrictions, and one of the conditions was ensuring a continued traffic impact review through the site plan review phase. So what they do, they provided a traffic study. It was reviewed by our traffic consultant. They gave a lot of recommendations that are there already part of the plans, and we will continue these through the site plan. So whatever you could talk in 2 weeks, it will not be with engineers, and they are the ones that should rule on this. So we'll keep an eye on this, and it's a condition that they already signed.
So what's your recommendation?
My recommendation is to approve it because they have an extensive time that they need. There were other developers that came to develop that same parcel, and it was so expensive to mitigate all the environmental impacts there. So I would let them go to allow them to do that. And then one of the conditions is that we will monitor that, and we will hire again our consultant, and we will look very closely at the traffic conditions.
Madam President, if I may, would it help to clarify the record if either the applicant or the planning and zoning director, Ms. Storch, in terms of the time frame between commencement of construction, I don't mean preliminary work, I don't mean mitigation, but commencement of construction versus the anticipated time for the roadway to be completed so it can be utilized? Is there any?
That I
Time-
cannot tell you because it's.
Does
the
Mr.
ground-
Arza have any idea?
He doesn't know.
Yeah, they haven't, the contract, again, they've directed staff to enter into a contract again, but that contract will spell out how long it will take to do 107th in particular. We're just focusing on that one road.
Okay, no,
Well,
I know that the county award process is not rapid. But what I mean is that did the county approve that item for the?
Yes, the county approved the item to have the administration.
The board approved the item
Right,
for the,
let
okay,
out
all
the
right,
contract
okay,
again.
thank you.
If you want, you can impose a condition that they can receive a temporary certificate of occupancy, but don't occupy the units until 107 is finished. That's something that you can come up with. as a
You
new
can,
condition.
you can add a condition that the applicant would have to, well, not would have, what, the applicant, you could inquire if the applicant would agree if you want to add some condition like that, and then they would add it to their covenant.
We did that with Manor on Red Road because they had a light and a median opening. So we put the condition that the units couldn't be occupied until that improvement was finished. So you can do something of that sort.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just conferring with Mr. Sarati again. He's sorry. The division president of Lennar. Yeah, I mean, we don't know exactly how long 107th Avenue will take to build out. You know, we think it will likely be in place by the time that, certainly we start moving folks in. We're talking about probably another year and a half before this community would be ready to have the first folks. And keep in mind, I mean, 178 homes aren't sold in one day. The anticipated sellout is over 2 years. So, I mean, I'd be hesitant to put a hold on the first 20 or 30 families that are trying to move into a community just because the county hasn't finished a road 10 blocks away. I mean, I think that might be like a real big sort of burden on them as your residents. So I'd like to not tie it to the finalization of that construction. But, I appreciate and I'm happy to sort of hear the sentiment, but I mean, it's not, as if all of these get dropped at once. It's not a multifamily building, right? Multifamily building gets finished once. And I mean, in theory, you can rent it out. I mean, these, units get built in blocks, as they're sold. So that's my only pause. I like to be very transparent with all of you. My only pause is that I don't want us to stop something from occurring a year and a half from now because neither the city nor the applicant has any control over it. It's in the county's control. But certainly we could get more information from the county, as Deborah said, well before we ever get to that point and, work through both the site planning concurrency review process and the city to address any concerns. So I'm open to suggestions. I just don't really want to tie us and find out a year and a half from now that people just can't move in. Even 10 or 20 or 30 families can't move in. That would be a tough situation. So that's my only thought.
Okay, anyone else? I mean, if I may through the chair, you're recognized. I think that this area we've done a lot of planning. It's blossoming. It's very blossoming. There's a lot of restaurants, there's supermarkets, there's schools. It's thriving. But whenever you drive by there, you have that congestion because there isn't a lot of open roads. We've all had to deal with it. If it's going to take a year for German, it's going to take 2 years then to build out the property, and then it's going to take another year to get residents. That's already about 4 years is what they're estimating. I don't think putting that condition in there is bad. What Deborah recommended, in my opinion, if they're estimating about 4 years, according to what they just said. And then that allows us to put a little bit of pressure to the county. Any new projects that come to this area, we could add that condition to it. And we could kind of control what's happening in that area. I think that was a great suggestion that Deborah said. And in the meantime, I think that if we stick to that commitment of the 2 weeks to meet with the commissioner each on our own, I'll follow your lead. I'll make a meeting with him as well. I know the residents have already met with him. And if they start feeling that pressure from our side and they start seeing how serious it is and how it's impacting our development in that area and how now we're having to place these conditions in order to mitigate the traffic and the safety of all those construction trucks that are going by there, I think they're going to see the crisis that we're encountering. And then it also reflects that we're echoing the concerns of the people that have to live there day in and day out.
So
Maybe we table it for 2 weeks. We follow up, we see, the timeline, we could speak to the commissioner. We could discuss a little bit more with Deborah, those conditions. But I'm okay with that. If that's how you want to move forward, I think that's.
Just a quick question on that through the chair. Hey, city attorney, can we, so if we add on a condition like that, let's say a year from now, can we reassess that condition and possibly amend it and lift it, or?
That's a good question. I think that, when you add a condition, well, our ideal is that we hope that the applicant would concur on the record, but regardless of that, you can, when you add a condition, you can say the council on its own or at the recommendation of P&Z director will revisit this condition in a year and decide if they want to modify it, or you can do that, sure, for something like this.
Yeah, Hugo, I just think we got to give the people something, right?
Sure, no.
Right, so
Well, we could revisit the condition down the road. certainly, that might be sort of an elegant way to get more information, allow us to, we won't start. I mean, realistically, you're not going to go spend the money to start doing everything you need to do until you have some clarity. So if we have clarity of an approval and we revisit the timing of the roadway, at some point, by the end of this year, or whatever the case may be, then we could always modify that, the condition of holding any COs down the road. Just to clarify one point, I mean, the project will probably be finished in 4 years. We would probably be in a position to move the first folks in about a year and a half, about the rest of this year for Durham, maybe into the beginning of next year, and then they'll start building. And again, they don't build everything and wait to build everything. They start building and selling. So just to be clear, I mean, we would anticipate we might have folks moving in sometime middle of 26. So we wouldn't have 4 years to wait for the first folks. We'd probably have 4 years for the last folks. But maybe what makes sense then is
A year and a half is your timeline then
for the first, yeah, for those first
Okay.
units to be delivered.
Okay.
And so, honestly, if we thought we could get sufficient information in the next 2 weeks to avoid a condition of that type at all, we would be, that I, would be amenable, and we'd work with you, and we could table the item for 2 weeks and maybe have some more answer, not have to include a condition like that. Or if, the sentiment is the project is valid, we just have these other questions and we're going to want to revisit it, not just in 2 weeks, we're going to want to look at this again in 6, 9, 12 months, then we certainly would be, amenable to including a condition that we revisit the sort of the timing of where that construction of 107th is in about at the end of this year or 12 months from now or whatever, and then adjust if necessary. We can come back before this council and say, hey, look, the county is moving plenty ahead of schedule and they're going to be done with 107th in time for the first of our units. This is not going to be an issue. Or look, the county has continued to, be a little slower than we'd like, even though I appreciate all of you pushing. And at that point, we could modify and then, ensure that, some portion of the COs, maybe not all of them, but some portion of that community can't move in until it's finalized. I mean, I've certainly done projects like that where something can't happen until, so either way, I just, if 2 weeks gives us some clearer answers, and it may, then we could certainly, we'd be okay. And we always want to work with you guys. If we think that it's better to just go ahead and start the process and come back and give a more full update in some period of time that you all decide, I'm agnostic. I mean, we'll probably be here in 2 weeks anyway, but I would love to, obviously be done this evening, and we've been through 3 hearings, but we would respect your wishes, of course.
Yeah, I think Hugo, just the more I think about it now, I think it's a fair compromise. If we include that condition and mention that in a year's time, which is still before your timeline, right? In a year's time, we'll review it again. We'll see where we'll see. And it's before. So in a year's time, you're not going to be able to move anybody in yet.
Okay. I don't think we're okay. Yeah, we've got no objection to that from my client, and appreciate you guys, working with us.
Okay,
So
good.
just to revisit, the condition is, how is it going to be worded? The condition is what? That no occupants can move forward
Let's let
until,
legal chime in on that.
The possibility of a revision.
In a year's
but
time.
before the road is built.
Go ahead. Ed, she had a question.
I'm sorry, Mr. Attorney, what would be the proper eloquent way to write in the CO? What would we?
So, I was just conferring with the P&Z director and. Thank you. I was conferring with the P&Z director. We think that the simplest thing is to just have a new covenant because they have another covenant for other things that are the standard things, a new covenant in the usual city form. And you would add something to the effect in your own words, but be as clear as possible, because we want the applicant on board and the council to have clarity, something like the roadway connection to 107th shall be substantially completed prior to a temporary CO being issued. This condition may be revisited or modified by the city council, something like that, or some variation of that. Substantially completed means that not necessarily right that it's done, but that it's almost done, before there's a temporary. That's just my suggestion, something along those lines. That's what I thought you were contemplating.
But that could be subject to interpretation as well.
Okay, so how would you want to clarify it for, will just be completed?
Like a percentage of the road, I mean, I don't know.
I
For
don't,
that area.
I'm not a traffic engineer. I just don't know. I'm not comfortable coming up with some, substantially completed is a word of art that means that it's almost done, that soon you'll be able to use it or can use it.
I think what we would gain from a year is, I mean, I think in a year we'd know, are they out there building? And that question will be answered, right? I mean, we will have an updated construction schedule, and then they could say, look, it's going to be done in 3 months or 5 more months or 6 more months. And then at that time, a year from now, we could discuss, okay, well, if we think it's going to be done in the near future, then maybe there's, it'll be done before any residents move in. We lift the CO restriction, or look, this will take a little longer than the construction is going to take a little longer than the full community will built out. And a year from now, we can have a conversation about, okay, well, it's not going to be done for a while. We would have some folks ready to move in, but it's maybe a quarter of the residents, and you all might, be more comfortable at that point a year from now saying, okay, well, that's different because we've seen progress. We know that this is going to finish. I know where we stand here today, they haven't laid a brick on the ground, or however you want to say it. And so I realize we're as frustrated as the neighbors, because I would love a more concrete answer, but I think in a year, we'll definitely know a lot more and we could revisit. And I like the suggestion of a separate declaration of restriction. So we just bring that one before you with that item. We give you an update, you'll get it from your staff, and you all will be in a position to make a decision at that point. Like, is the road close to being done, or God forbid, hasn't even started?
Yeah, we'll have that discussion when the time comes.
Right. And we get to work for a year, deal with Durham on a contaminated property that, Durham is going to require us to clean up, and all of the other commitments that we've made can start flowing to the city, which, is important too.
And it's outside of my bailiwick. It's a policy, but really perhaps when you meet with the county commissioner for the district, I do believe that the county has some kind of process that a board member can say a project should be expedited or accelerated. And maybe with the argument that this has been delayed because the contract lapsed and there's a developer waiting with
Right.
a property interest and whatever, you could push.
Right.
Because the county process in general, it's not the most rapid in the world.
Yeah, that was my thought process behind it. If we have some ammunition on our side that we can negotiate with them and say, look at the crisis.
Yeah.
We're not able, we have this, this area on hold due to the lack of transit that we have, and we have this crisis, then maybe we can motivate them to complete this project sooner.
Agreed.
I'm comfortable with having some kind of covenant developed. If you're
And I
comfortable
want to
with
make
that
it
wording,
clear.
I'm not sure.
Sorry, through the chair. I want to make it clear. I think this project is a great project.
Right.
But it's like, how do we find the balance, right?
course.
Because there is so much noise from that. And this might be a silver lining, right? This might be the project that helps push and make, 107th, and 107th
Agreed.
happen. So,
We'll join you at any meetings you want. I mean, I believe I can join you at any meetings. There's no sunshine issues. So if you ever need, so if you need, for
There's
that.
no sunshine issues as long as it's just one of you.
Yeah, exactly. So happy to present, and tell the commissioner. Right.
You can't all go together.
Right.
All right, thank you.
All right, so motion as amended, is that?
With the covenant.
Can it?
That's fine. There will be a covenant substantially in somewhere along the lines of what was read into the record, proffered by the applicant and approved by the planning director is what we usually do. Is that acceptable?
I think so.
Okay, that will be an additional condition for this approval.
Correct. Then we'll
Right.
go ahead and draft that additional covenant, and we'll get that over for your review. And
Yes, our review and yes, correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion.
okay, so I have a motion by Councilmember Tundidor and a second by De La Vega. As amended.
Mr. Tonidor,
Yes.
Mr. Zogby,
Yes.
Mr. Junco, Ms. De La Vega,
Yes.
Ms. Garcia Robes.
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Motion carries. The item is approved as amended.
thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Hugo.
Item B.
Ma'am, we can go back to the land use item if you like. The applicant is here. But before we do that, if I can just record Councilmember Tundidor's vote on administrative item 11I, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Madam President, if I could.
Sure.
So Thank you for skipping the land use item, but I think because it has a sister or companion item in item E, which is the zoning component, we can do both at that time. So like that, we don't change the order. And I think that might make more sense.
You can do them together and present them both as long as
Right.
you take separate votes. You just need to take separate votes.
So when E is called, we'll do the land use at that time, if it's okay with this council.
Sure. It's okay with you guys? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Item 16B, second reading and public hearing of proposed ordinance granting a conditional use permit pursuant to Hialeah Code of Ordinances, section 98-181, to allow a supervisory residential care and treatment facility with the existing 120 beds plus 12 new beds, a variance permit to allow the expansion of a non-conforming use existing at 120 beds plus 12 new beds, a variance permit to allow the expansion of a non-conforming use existing at the site since 1984, and allowing 40 parking spaces where 44 parking spaces are required. In contrast to Hialeah Code of Ordinances, section 98-189, subsection 21, property located at 5345 West 18th Avenue, Hialeah, zoned R33, multiple family district, and legally described herein. Repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, repealing all ordinances or providing penalties for violation hereof, providing for an effective date.
Okay, so this item is on second reading. It's open for the public. It's also, I don't know if anyone has any questions up here. I know
Through the
two of
chair.
our council members weren't here in the first reading.
Motion.
You're
And
right.
second,
Okay. Motion by Councilmember Tundidor, second by Zogby.
Mr. Tumidor?
Yes.
Mr. Zogby?
yes.
Mr. Junco? Ms. De La Vega?
Yes.
Ms. Garcia Robes?
Yes.
Ms. Perez?
Yes.
Motion carries. The item is approved.
Thank you, and I'll see
Thank
you
you.
in a couple minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Howie.
Okay, item C.
Second reading and public hearing of proposed ordinance granting a variance permit to allow a proposed 11-story parking garage where 2 stories are the maximum allowed. Contrast to Hialeah Code of Ordinances, section 98-1375, properties located at 3667 Northwest 48th Terrace and 3666 Northwest 49th Street, Hialeah, zoned M1 Industrial District, and legally described herein. Repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing penalties for violation hereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, this item's on second reading. It's open for the public. Is there anyone registered?
No, ma'am.
Pleasure of the board.
And a motion,
Okay, have a motion by Zogby. We have a second? You second?
Yes.
Oh, second by De La Vega.
Mr. Zogby,
yes.
Mr. Junco, Ms. De La Vega,
Yes.
Ms. Garcia Robes.
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Mr. Tumidor.
Yes.
Motion carries. The item is approved.
Okay, moving on to item D.
Second reading and public hearing of proposed ordinance granting a special use permit pursuant to Hialeah Code of Ordinances, section 98-161, to allow a food truck court adjacent to a commercial building restricted to the property address and as legally described and specified herein, where food truck courts are not included as a permitted use within the city's commercial districts, granting a variance permit to allow 52 parking spaces where 350 parking spaces are required, and allow 84 parking spaces granted under City of Hialeah Ordinance Number 2023-031, attached hereto as Exhibit B. In contrast to Hialeah Code of Ordinances, Section 98-189, subsection F, property located at 7551 West 4th Avenue, Hialeah, Zone C3, Extended Liberal Commercial District, and legally described in Exhibit A, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing penalties for violation hereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, this item's on second reading. It's open for the public. Is there anyone? Hi, good evening.
Motion,
Second, we have a motion by Zogby and a second by De La Vega.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Junco? Ms. De La Vega?
Yes.
Ms. Garcia Robes,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Tumidor,
Yes.
Mr. Zogby.
Yes.
Motion carries. The item is approved.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to item E, and also that's the one that we're gonna combine with item A, yeah, 15A.
So I present 15A, and both together, take the vote on 15A first, please.
Yes.
Item 15A, first reading of proposed ordinance amending the future land use map from low-density residential to medium-density residential. Property located at 1760 East First Avenue, Hialeah, zoned R2, 1 and 2 family residential district and legally described herein. Repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing penalties for violation hereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date.
Okay. Hi, how are
Good
you?
evening, Madam President and council members. My name is Javi Vasquez. I'm with Berger Singerman. Our offices are at 1450 Brickell Avenue, and I'm here tonight on the land use item and item E, and I will be presenting this as one presentation with the hope that you can vote on both items, so one after the other. I represent Cornerstone Property Ventures 2 LLC. Here with me is Mr. Miguel Perez from Cornerstone, as well as Mr. Carlos Cardoso, who is our architect. I did have a presentation that was shown at Planning and Zoning Board. I don't know if you have it. It's got a couple of pretty pictures, but if we don't, it's okay. I thought we might have it today. Okay. Anyways, the subject property is at 1760 East First Avenue. This is an existing mental health facility that's been there since 1986. This is a big cleanup of sorts. It's like a land use cleanup. It's a zoning cleanup, and it's a conditional use cleanup for an expansion of a non-conforming use with certain variances that are needed for the expansion of this facility. It's a small scale amendment from low density residential to medium density residential, which is needed for the expansion. It's got a rezoning component, and it has a conditional use permit. There is a variance on the parking. We have a traffic study that was submitted in connection with this application because of the importance of the parking issue. The proposed expansion will take the existing facility from 34 beds to 74 beds. And the parking study that was submitted concluded, based on the use, that 7 parking spaces is sufficient. They looked at 3 other facilities owned by the same applicant, and we have committed one of those facilities, which has a surplus of 6 parking spaces, to commit 3 parking spaces to this facility for the employees of the mental health facility. And with those 3 additional spaces, the required parking or the needed parking based on the use will be satisfied. This application is recommended for approval by your staff. It was recommended for approval by your Planning and Zoning Board. We would respectfully request approval tonight as well. This, we all know, is such a needed service in our community. Mr. Perez and his family have an incredible track record running this facility and the other facilities that they own in Hialeah. And with that, we would respectfully request your approval on first reading tonight.
Motion. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Tumidor and a second by Zogby. Yes.
Ms.
for 15.
Garcia Robes,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Tumidor,
Yes.
Mr. Zogby,
Yes.
Mr. Junco,
Yes.
Ms. De La Vega.
Yes.
Motion carries. The item 15A is approved. Second reading and public hearing is scheduled for February 25th, 2025.
Okay, now moving on to item 16E.
First reading of proposed ordinance rezoning property from R2, 1 and 2 family residential district to R33 multiple family district, granting a conditional use permit pursuant to City of Hialeah Code of Ordinances, Section 98-191, to allow an assisted living facility with the existing 31 beds plus 40 new additional beds, allowing a lot coverage of 53.27%, where 45 is the maximum lot coverage allowed, granting a variance permit to allow the expansion of a non-conforming use existing at the site since 1985, allow 7 parking spaces where 24 parking spaces are required, and allow all parking spaces to back out into the right-of-way, where back out into the right-of-way is only permitted in low-density residential properties. All in contrast to City of Hialeah Code of Ordinances, Sections 98-682 subsection 1, 98-2189 subsection 21, and 93 section 93 subsection 3 of the Land Development Code. Property located at 1760 East First Avenue, Hialeah, zoned R2, 1 and 2 Family District, and legally described herein. Repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing penalties for violation hereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date.
Okay, this item's on first reading and it's the one that's combined with item 15A. So pleasure of the board.
That's a motion. There's a
Motion by
second.
Zogby, second by Tundido.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Tonidor,
Yes.
Mr. Zogby,
Yes.
Mr. Junco,
Yes.
Ms. De La Vega,
Yes.
Ms. Garcia Robes.
Yes.
Motion carries. The item is approved. Second reading and public hearing of proposed ordinance is scheduled for February 25th, 2025.
Thank you. We'll see you then. Have a good night.
Thank you.
for your
Good
vote.
night. Good night. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item F.
First reading of proposed ordinance rezoning properties from P Parking District to TOD Transit Oriented Development District, amending the existing declaration of use and covenant in lieu of unity of title record in Official Records Book 30758, page 3898 of the Public Records of Miami-Dade County, later modified in Official Records Book 31240, page 2828 of the Public Records of Miami-Dade County, in order to release a limitation of use on a portion of the properties. Properties located at 555 East 25th Street, 502 East 26th Street, 512 East 26th Street, 522 East 26th Street, 532 East 26th Street, 540 East 26th Street, and 522 East 26th Street. Zoned P Parking District and legally described herein. Repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing penalties for violation hereof, providing for a severability clause, and providing for an effective date.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, board members. Alejandro Arias, offices at 701 Brickell Avenue. I am joined tonight by my colleagues Alessandria San Roman, Erica Adams, and Hugo Arza, representing the applicant, as well as project principals Mike Sheely and Benjamin Leon Jr. was here earlier. Mike is here to answer any questions you may have. We're grateful for the opportunity to be bringing before you this transformational project coming back to this council. Some of you maybe recall that last year around the summertime, we were here with the first step in this process, which was the land use component. We are now here with the second process in the lockstep, which is the zoning entitlements. Next slide. The subject property is approximately 5.6 acres. It encompasses a full city block between East 25th Street and East 26th Street, and between East 5th and East 6th. This fronts on East 25th, a major city thoroughfare within close proximity of major healthcare employment centers, sparse commercial, and residential densities ranging from low to high densities. Next slide. The site is currently utilized as an additional parking for Leon Medical Centers located just west at their East Hialeah Center. It should be noted that the East Hialeah Center, per its independent site plan approval, currently has a surplus of 76 parking spaces on that site and per city code, and it does not have an operational parking deficiency. I'll reference this later in the presentation. But as it applies to this subject property, this property is used more as an employee amenity to offer additional employee parking rather than a necessity as far as parking demand. Next slide, please. As referenced last year, the subject property's land use was redesignated to the TOD district from parking. It's currently zoned parking, which was intended to be transitional in nature. Next slide. As such, we're here tonight with staff's favorable recommendation as it relates to two things: a rezoning of the property from P parking to transit-oriented development, and the amendment of an existing declaration of use which currently limits the property to parking. As delineated in the staff recommendation, the strategic location of this site will allow many residents to transport easily throughout the city without the need of a car. It's located near two mass transit stations on East 21st Street and East 25th Street. Next slide. In connection with the proposed development program, the applicant is proposing the redevelopment of the property into an 8-story mixed-use development encompassing approximately 559 multifamily units and 26,000 square feet of ground floor commercial uses, fronting on East 25th Street. Now, based on the employment centers near East 25th Street and the commercial visibility, it's anticipated that we will attract national retailers and restaurants, which will provide prime options for residents and workers within this district. The project will also feature a number of amenities, including an elegant and secure lobby, a dedicated Uber Lyft lounge, fitness center, pool and spa, family amenity area, clubhouse, courtyard, bike storage, and seating areas. Additionally, while this is a true transit-oriented project, the proposed development will also provide off-street parking well in excess of the code requirements, where 764 are required, 818 are being provided, as well as 38 additional on-street parking spaces around the perimeter of the property. Next slide. Now, given the current state of the housing supply challenges, this project will offer significant diversity of unit types for any stage of life, allowing residents to stay in place and upgrade or downsize based on their respective living needs. So we'll have studios all the way to 3-bedroom units throughout the gamut of this project. Next slide. Designed by Modis Architects, this project will incorporate elegant and refined architecture and will enhance the attractiveness and visual appeal of this important city corridor. Next slide. Here we can see from 25th Street what the project will look like, the ground floor retail in the night. Next slide. The ground floor retail along with the frontage on 25th. Next slide. That will be the main entrance into the commercial located on 25th.
Thanks. Yeah.
Next slide. And we will have also, in order to activate pedestrianism, pedestrian gates on each side of East 5th and 6th in order to have walkability into the project. Next slide. Now, as set forth in staff's favorable recommendation, the ability to develop the site as TOD and its proximity to 2 metro stations in the city and the rooftops in the area provides the appropriate density to support the transportation options to future residents. This project will also help to create a distinctive streetscape along East 25th Street. And additionally, through a revolutionary program that we are calling the Hialeah Heroes Program, the applicant is offering to redesignate 5% of the residential units of the project as workforce housing, with preference to be given to city police officers, first responders, firefighters, nurses, teachers, and city employees in general. Next slide. Of significant importance, since the approval of the land use designation, and in order to fully understand the impacts of this project, the applicant prepared a traffic impact analysis at staff's direction. Now, this is a process that's usually reserved for the subsequent site plan and concurrency phase after the zoning re-entitlement, but the applicant, in working with the city, chose to do so at this point. This analysis was reviewed and the methodology vetted by the city's traffic consultant, as well as City Streets Department and the Florida Department of Transportation. These reviewing departments have all provided comments, which will be addressed, and many of which have already been incorporated into the updated site plan. And ultimately, this analysis has shown that the signalized intersections and stop sign controlled intersections are expected to operate within their adopted levels of service, and that the proposed project will not significantly impact the intersection of East 25th and East 8th Ave. Next slide. This project is also within close proximity of the proposed High Line Linear Park, an area envisioned by the city to be similar to the county's Underline, with programming centered around an amenitized urban trail. So this vision includes walking and cycling trails, outdoor gyms, dog park, basketball courts, domino park, and a multi-performative lawn. In support of this initiative, the applicant has submitted a letter of support to Miami-Dade County in connection with the city amenity, and has also proffered a significant monetary contribution that will help to make this city initiative a reality. The project will also generate nearly $1.8 million in impact fees, which the city can also utilize to undertake infrastructure upgrades in the surrounding community, including a mid-block crossing, as was referenced in the staff recommendation. Next slide. Ultimately, this project will serve to beautify and further transform this key corridor of the city. Based on its location, with a unique mix of commercial, healthcare, and residential uses, it will provide an excellent alternative for employees in the immediate vicinity to live within close proximity of their jobs. We respectfully request your approval of this item with one tweak to the conditions. It was referenced at the Planning and Zoning Board. There's a condition now that says that the applicant will proffer to build a parking garage on the East Hialeah Leon Medical Center facility. It was discussed and recommended by the Planning and Zoning Board that that condition be changed, that at site plan and concurrency, we undertake a parking study, that if there is a parking deficiency at that time, we will ameliorate that as necessary. But as stated, there's a surplus of parking on that site, 74 spaces. So to request that right now would, in my opinion, be premature. We have Mike Shealy here, who is familiar with the operations of the medical center as well. But we believe that that is a more accurate condition to have rather than the pro-offer of a parking.
Through the chair.
You're recognized.
Yeah, this project is extremely important for that corridor, right? How you mentioned we have the High Line. I think the High Line is the birth of true connectivity within our city, right? And we want to make sure that at the end of the day, there's a route for people if they want to walk or ride bike or ride a scooter all throughout the city. We want to make sure that it starts with the High Line, right? And grows from there. So thank you guys for again supporting our efforts with the High Line and most importantly for supporting our vision for the TOD area. I mean, for a long time, and I think Deborah had worked on this TOD language a long time ago, and just now is when we're starting to see a lot of development. So we appreciate that, and most importantly as well, I'd like to thank you for again that percentage of workforce housing. I think that's really important. Any little bit helps, and especially if we are able to give our first responders some sort of priority. So I do appreciate that, and you have my full support, and I motion to approve.
Through the chair.
You're recognized.
Beautiful project, bravo. It needs the improvement in the area. And I think the residents are going to be really happy, the ones who move in, the tenants who move in there and residents. So, second. And what about, wait a minute, I'm missing some, no paseo in this project?
Oh, it's kind of paseo on
Okay,
the sides.
thank you. I'm done. Thank you very much.
Paseo,
No, it wasn't me. It was Melinda.
if I may, through
Sure.
the council president, just for the record to be clear. Just the council, the applicant has requested a modification of the parking structure condition, as I understood it, to say something like, if there is a parking study that shows a parking deficiency as concurred in by the city's parking consultant, that then they will build a parking structure and something like that.
And I have some proposed language if you would
You have
like to read it.
Okay, I just, from the city's perspective, it just should be concurred in by our parking consultant as opposed to respectfully, whoever you hire.
Let me.
Right, yes.
Let me
that's-
clarify, they comply with the parking and the Leon Medical Center complies with the parking. We just put the parking garage because in the letter of intent, they mentioned that they were going to build a parking garage in the campus. So it's not a condition. It's not a condition, and when you won't leave your doctors in the medical center without parking. So if need comes, I'm sure that you will do. And also there will be like a synergy because maybe some of the people that work in Leon Medical Center will decide to move here and maybe they won't be using the car that much. So what speaks is reality. So we'll see what happens over time.
Okay, and again, just because I wanted to.
It's not a condition.
So that you're recommending that
To
condition
remove
does
the
not be
condition
included.
of
Okay,
the
all
parking
right.
garage. Yes.
The council accepts that?
Okay, so we had a motion by Councilmember Tundidor and a second by Zogby.
Mr. Tumidor,
Yes.
Mr. Zogby,
Yes.
Mr. Junco,
Yes.
Ms. De La Vega,
Yes.
Ms. Garcia Robes.
Yes.
Ms. Perez.
Yes.
Motion carries. The item is approved. Second reading and public hearing is scheduled for February 25th, 2025.
Thank
you very
you.
much. Have a great night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Item G.
The application has been withdrawn by the applicant,
Okay, item H is.
and item H is postponed until a city council meeting of February 25th, 2025.
Final decisions, none.
No, ma'am.
So the meeting is done. We adjourn the meeting at 7:16. Good night, everyone.
All right. Thank you.